Welcome back. In this one, I'm taking a look at a pair of side tables, and I'll be talking you through the design process that I went through in order to get something that did what I wanted, but still looked good too. This video is sponsored by Woodworkers Guild of America, by the way. More from them a little later on. So way back, before I was on YouTube, or maybe just starting, I managed to snag some salvaged oak floorboards. I've used those in a number of smaller projects here on the channel, but the one I haven't really talked about or shown was this little side table that I designed and made just as a personal project. It's worked really well. It's strong and stable. It's just the right height to sit below the arm of the sofa and perfect for the TV remote or a bowl of salty snacks. And this sort of wedge shape that I left in the middle was handy for newspapers and magazines. Kind of made more sense when they were actually made of paper. Anyway, fast forward a number of years and we now have all this, and yes, I will finish those build videos soon, but we just wanted a matched pair of side tables, one for each end of this sofa, and I just fancied something a little bit different to what I already had. Now, there are plenty of sofa tables around, those kind of C-shaped ones that can sit around the arm of a sofa or flip around the other way. I've got to be honest, I'm not a fan. You've got an arm on your sofa for a reason, and when you're not covering it up with the table, then the table is going to be sort of higher than the level of the arm. That just doesn't sit well for me. I'm fine with the size and shape and proportions of the little side table. I just wanted something a little bit different. So I'm partial to a little bit of early 20th century Dutch modernism, Mondrian, of course, but also his dish steel contributor Rietveld. Rietveld was the son of a joiner, and his red and blue chair from 1917 kind of paved the way for flat surfaces and furniture, something he used to great effect in my personal favourite, his zigzag chair. Now, when I say it's my personal favourite, I mean that I admire the design, but I don't think I'd want to sit on it for very long. And the actual construction with these big wedge-shaped gussets on the inside of the angles and the seat, the leg and the base section simply bolted together with all the bolts visible. Whilst it's certainly effective for supporting body weight, it isn't what I'd like to see in a small, elegant side table. So I've come up with a couple of designs that I think may work, a Z-shaped table and an I-shaped table, and I've made a couple of quick prototypes of each just in MDF, and my 10-minute workshop plus members have seen those develop over the last few weeks. So I've got to say, I really like them both. Between these two, the I table is a little more complete at this stage. There's more work to be done on the Z table, so I'll continue that one in another video. But overall, aesthetically, I prefer the Z shape, but it is a more complex piece to make. The I shape table is actually very straightforward. This whole thing was cut with just a track saw, and yes, it might have been jointed together with a festival domino, but it could just as easily have been done with biscuits or dowels. I'm going to make one of these in birch ply, so I'll get back to the workshop so we can get started on that. And while that happens, let me tell you about today's video sponsor. That's Woodworkers Guild of America. I know a Brit talking about Woodworkers Guild of America. It's the accent. Woodworkers Guild of America is your online resource for woodworking instruction, ideas and information, a community where you can hone your skills and share your woodworking journey with other members along the way. Whether your focus is on making projects from sheet goods like me, or finer woodworking with hand tools in natural timbers, or everything in between, you'll find a wealth of knowledge and experience within the community. There's a vast collection of woodworking tutorials that are constantly being updated, alongside interesting articles, project ideas, relevant product reviews, and Q&A sessions with experts. I caught a great set of videos from Jimmy DeResta covering a wide range of skills from bandsaw lettering to making an heirloom quality toolbox, complete with project plans, and one short video as well demonstrating a really simple but effective technique to avoid getting chip out when trimming back a veneered board. I used to be a professional photographer before I turned to the splintery side of things, so I was really interested to see videos on how to photograph your work as well, a really important part of the process that's often overlooked until after you've sold or gifted the box you've made or the bowl that you've turned. And whichever aspect of woodworking you focus on, you'll find plenty of inspiration at Woodworkers Guild of America. The first 1,000 people to use the link in the video description to join the community will receive a full year's premium membership for just $1.49. That offer's valid for new members only, by the way. You can't really say fairer than that. But I can say thanks so much to Woodworkers Guild of America for extending that offer to all viewers and for sponsoring this video. So back in the workshop, I've got some nice 22mm 7/8 inch birch ply. My local timber yard, AJ Ferguson, have ripped an entire sheet down to 200mm wide strips. I'm not going into production on the table, not yet anyway, but I do want to use the rest of those strips. Probably need some more as well. I do want to use it for some shelves that I've got planned in my office. More on that in a future video too. I've got a strip that's cut slightly narrower too. I'm going to use that for the upright between the two bases. And for the moment, I'm just cutting straight ends on everything. That way, it's easier to do the domino machining, the mortises and whatnot. And then you can put the bevels on a little bit later. So I've actually drawn this up full size. I'll just show you how I got to this point on smaller projects. I like to work at 100% where I can, as it makes figuring out the angles easier. And it was pretty clear that the tight miters on the Z were going to be problematic. So just to make it easier to construct, I moved this angle straighter to connect the two pieces, and the sort of the symmetry of it appealed when you come in from the same distance from each side. There'll be a set of plans available for this, of course, but for now I'm just working off of this simple little pencil drawing. One thing I did have to think about when you're connecting an angled edge to two flat pieces, like we have with the upright and the top and the base, is that you can either keep the fixings in line with the piece, with the upright, and angle the mortises at the top and base. That works well if you're using a handheld jointing machine like biscuits or dominoes that I'll be using. But if you're using a jig and router system like the Peanut 2, you're better off keeping the jig flat on the top and the base, and then drilling into the upright so that the fixing goes in perpendicular to the angle. Keeping the fixings in line with the upright also makes it easier to clamp as well as you're applying pressure along the length of the piece. And when I did my test, I just used some little offcuts, some clamping blocks made from the offcuts with a little piece of sandpaper glued to one edge. Now, one little niggle that I found with this birch ply is that it's closer to 21mm thick than 22. So I've done a little bit of a hasty redraw, a remeasure, just to get everything squared up. And when I measured the test piece, I actually found that the top and the base didn't quite line up. They were slightly off edge to edge. So in this one, I'm doing a bit of a cheat. I'll be leaving the top and the base slightly long, about 400mm or so. I'll put the mortises in on a common dimension. I think it's 123mm from the ends. I'll get that off the drawing. I'll get it all dry fitted, then I'll just square at the edges from the top and base and cut them back to size so that they match. It's also a good trick to know if you don't want to use the plans or draw everything up for yourself. I've done a quick test in the birch ply. There's no 21mm preset on the domino. That's a test from sort of one side and the other. And it's looking centered enough for me, so I'm just going to get on with putting the mortises into the ends of the upright, then I can get them cut to the 15-degree angle, and then I can get to work on the top and the base. I'm using 5x30mm dominoes. You can use bigger if you like, but the test piece was done with just a pair of 5x30s. And then I'm beveling up the ends of the upright. All right, so that's all gone okay. There's a little wrinkle that we need to do, because obviously when you're plunging at a slight angle, it's not going to come down on the exact center line that you think of. I'm just quickly marking up the top and the base. And I'm just going to use an arbitrary kind of 125mm or so. Looks about right for the center. And this, as I say, the beauty of this is that we can shuffle it around a little bit. Yeah, 125 looks about right. So. 1, 2, 5 for our centre, and then 1, 2, 5 back this way as well. All right, so we've got to plunge the mortises into the top and base at an angle, and we've got to know reasonably precisely where they're going to come to, because we want to try and get them on that sort of the line that we've drawn as close as we can. What I've done, I've just put a piece of tape onto a bit of scrap here. This is clamped down onto the bench, so we know that's not going to move. This is nice and square to the edge, and then we can take our board. This is the actual centerpiece, upright with a bevel on it, and we can just run that up nice and flush against the edge of the tape. Make sure that doesn't move. And all we're going to do is we're going to take our domino, we're just going to run it into there and then just tip it back so that it's butted up square against the end of the bevel cut, and we've got that locked in place. So now we can just do a quick and easy plunge. And that shows us exactly where the domino mortise is going to come in relation to the end of the board that we're using as a gauge. In fact, we can go one further and put a pencil line or a Sharpie line along the center of that. And that is our perfect little gauge, our perfect little template for where the mortises are going to come relative to the end of our board that we're using as a gauge. Clamp that lot down, and then we should be good to go for 3 slightly wider mortises, and we can line the center line of the domino up with our pencil lines here. So. Okay, that's all done. I'm just going to pop these together with 4 dominoes for the moment, just as a quick dry fit. So for that, a square. Okay, dry fit's all looking pretty good. I'm just going to cut the bevels on these, same angle as the upright, so it's all sort of continuous. And then we can get everything sanded and think about getting it glued up. Okay, so that's not looking too bad. There was a little bit, as you might have noticed yesterday when I was gluing it up, there was a little bit of twist in the body of it. And I tried clamping it up and it's still there. It's only a couple of mil, if that. And I don't think it really matters. It just means that they're skewed ever so slightly. But other than that, I'm very pleased with that. Yeah, no issues with that at all. We can give that a final, very light sanding. I didn't do the front parts because they had still had identification on, so a little bit, all very light sanding. And then we'll get a coat of finish on it. You could do all kinds of things with something like this. I'm just going to put a plain wax finish on it. You could paint the flat faces and leave the plywood edges clear. You could put a laminate on those. And the same, you could paint the whole thing. If you're going to paint the whole thing, I'd be more inclined to use MRMDF like I did with the test pieces. But overall, I think I'm very, very happy with that. No issues with this at all. I've tested the test piece for weight. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get back. Let me finish this up. We'll give it a very light hand sanding and then a coat of wax. And we'll chat some more. While that wax soaks in a little, I've cut some leather triangles and stuck them onto the base as non-marking feet. I'll leave it up to you to decide whether they're protecting the floor or the table. And after a quick buffing over with the soft cloth, I can get this back alongside my sofa. So there you are. Ooh. A simple little side table. I made this out of 22mm 7/8 inch sheets to give it a bit more heft, but the design works well in 18mm 3/4 inch too. If you wanted to paint it, you could just use MDF, stain it, you could use plywood, or just make it out of whatever you have, scaffold boards, furniture boards, soliton, but I quite fancy one in walnut or veneered boards. The choice is entirely yours. I made this one out of birch ply. I made the test pieces out of MDF, and honestly, I don't think there's a lot of difference between them, certainly in terms of strength. They're a lightweight side table for drinks and snacks. You won't be parking your cast iron casserole dishes on them, but if you wanted to, you absolutely could. These two weigh about 7 kilos, 15 pounds. Yes, if I picked them up and dropped them, I would probably have a broken table, but I would probably have a broken set of dishes as well, and a grumpy wife too, so I definitely won't be doing that. What I will be doing though is looking in more detail at the Z-shaped table. If you want to see how that progresses, then come and join us as a 10-Minute Workshop Plus member. Details at 10minuteworkshop.com, or sign up directly at 10minuteworkshop.plus. Remember too that I'm off the weekly schedule these days. This has been my 600th video on YouTube. Video 601 will be out whenever it's ready, but I'll call this one done for this week. Thanks so much for taking a look. As always, leave a comment, hit subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.